Fewer than 4,000 of its residents remained. The land routes were cut off by the Haganah terror group. Tens of thousands of the Palestinian citizens of Jaffa and neighboring villages fled by boat, south to Gaza and Egypt, and north to Lebanon.
What was the scene in your memory? What can you see? Was it anarchy? Was it calm? Was there screaming?
Absolute anarchy, people pushing each other, and there were ships unequipped for human use on which we were thrown on. It was a very rough sea that night, and I remember at least one person on the ship died because of the weather and because of the lack, nothing to eat, nothing to drink, no medicine. It was a cargo ship, and we didn't know where we're going because the ship was overloaded with people. It had already cargo on it. And finally we landed on a shore which we found out later on that it is near a village south of Lebanon called Ghaziyah.
So there you are in Ghaziyah, in a villa, given loan to your father. What was the effect on your father and mother?
My father at that time was already very old, and my mother and father had only one thing on their mind. Until we go back home, we wanted our children to get the best education they could. I had to go to the closest city for education, and there was the American school, the Protestant school in Sidon. And that was another experience because it's a 2 hours walk, and I meant walk, because there was no way I could afford transport, and there was no transport. So I had to walk 4 hours a day, suffer, rain, heat, snow, and I think that was some of the greatest blessings as well, because at 74 now today, I thank God for the health I have. And I think one of the good reasons is that I had to walk 4 hours a day. The doctor tells you walk 4 hours a week, and I had to do it every day. And during these trips, journeys on to the school and back, I was thinking, this is not fair what happened to us. So I dismissed all frustrations and started thinking, what should I do to contribute to the return of my homeland? And you may not believe it, I remember those moments. At that point, I did not know what I want to do, but I said, I'm going to work to become what I should become as a Palestinian, like many who are some of the best examples in the world. Since that journey in 1948, I have been on a path of optimism, working towards a goal which I can best describe in trying to serve my country through excellence and through demonstrating the excellence of the Palestinian people. During the attack on Jenin, I felt the responsibility. So I wrote a letter to Arafat saying that I would like to sponsor 1,000 students from the West Bank to become certified public accountants as an international qualification. He circulated that letter. I had 400 applications from Jenin. They didn't have food, they didn't have medicine, they didn't have milk for the children, but they enlisted and enrolled for education. This is a great nation. This nation can never disappear. It can never be erased. You cannot. It's a nation under siege, and under the worst and most brutal attack, they grasped the opportunity of education. Incidentally, I did the same way during the attack on Gaza, and I had the same response.
There are more than 4.5 million registered Palestinian refugees in the Middle East, and an estimated 5.5 million Palestinian refugees worldwide, making them the largest refugee population anywhere in the world. The refugees in Lebanon have no social and civil rights, and have very limited access to the government's public health or educational facilities. UN General Assembly Resolution 194 Section 3 states that refugees and their descendants have a right to compensation and repatriation to their original homes and land due to loss of or damage to property. The resolution defined 3 distinct rights: return to their homes, restitution of their property and/or compensation, and has been reaffirmed every year since 1948.
The whole philosophy of, or the whole, what you call raison d'etre of the occupation is the right of return of the Jews, which is a fallacy because it is not their homeland, but they built it on the theory of return. And actually, I don't know if you know, there is no constitution in Israel. There is only one law, and it's the law of return. So if the law of return is the law of the country, I don't understand how can an occupying power, whose only law is law of return, deny the right of return to the Palestinians. It's unheard of. I mean, this is the law of the land. I don't know how to explain to somebody who is not a refugee what it means to be a refugee. It means that you are uprooted from your land and you're on another place which does not accept you, and you don't want either to belong to it. So you are like a homeless. It's even worse than a homeless, because a homeless is in his own land and his own country. But a refugee is a homeless outside his own country. So it's a double hardship. It is, I think it's the most inhuman thing to deny the right of return to the Palestinians, because you're defying every law and every principle and every moral in the world. You cannot tell a refugee that I don't want you to go back to your home, full stop. Like the Israelis would like the world to support them in telling a refugee, no, you don't go home. You go now to any refugee camp in Lebanon, for example, and what you will see will make you cry, because these people are not even treated as human beings in the way they're living. It is inhuman. Well, let's talk about the larger refugee camp, which is Gaza. Gaza is another refugee camp. Most of the people in Gaza are not from Gaza, are refugees, and they are in a camp under siege. As a whole, it's a whole prison. It's a large prison. And the people living in refugee camps are also in prisons. They are denied the right to work, the right to education, to go to schools. I have seen Palestinians who are far below the standard in which you keep a cattle farm or a chicken farm. I mean, the inhuman situation in which they live, and the deprivation, the starvation, the lack of basic services is mind-boggling. And I think if there is one inhuman cruelty that the world has committed that can be cited out, that the global community has been guilty of, it's the Palestinian refugees. They have addressed the issues of refugees all over the world, except for the Palestinian refugees, because of the predominance and the influence and the blackmail of the Israeli lobby. But it's the worst refugee case and the least recognized and least attended to. Because I believe in a single standard and not a double standard, I think the Israelis in Israel deserve also